Hello, I'm John Leviakis, Investor Relations for Domestic Metals. The purpose of today's presentation is to introduce our president, Gordon Neal, Pat Veris, our CEO and chairman, and our senior geologist, Dan McNeil, to the financial markets. We're anxious to discuss the exciting results we have been seeing in our copper and gold properties in Montana. I'm personally a big fan of US-based copper mining, given recent tariff moves and intermediate and long-term commodity supply-demand price forecasts. Capital structure and valuation remain extremely appealing relative to our peer group ratio comparisons. We hope to proactively broaden our stock's visibility, liquidity, and valuation as we continue to communicate with corporate progress. And in Europe, Canada, and US, conferences and presentations and digital marketing. I'll now introduce to you a favorite of mine, the new president of Domestic Metals, Gordon Neal.
Okay, while Gordon Neal pulls up the presentation, thank you for attending. I just want to point out to you, if you have questions, there's a box at the bottom of your screen. Just pull your cursor over that and it pops up. It's called Q&A. If you have questions, please put your question there and we will answer it at the end of the presentation. Thank you. Gord, are you ready to share your screen?
I am ready to share my screen, and I am doing that right now. Can the panel see that?
Yes.
Started at the back end. Let's get back to the front end. So, thank you everybody thank you for the introduction, John, and thank everyone for attending. You know, this is a new company. We haven't done a lot of marketing, but there's a lot of promise here and there's a lot of excitement, and we'll go through why that is. But before I start the presentation, I want you to remember why we're here and how we get these kinds of projects and moving forward and get value increased, create value with them. You need three particular items, in my estimation, to make these things work in the resource world. First is you have to have a good project, an economically viable project. And what I mean by that is it has to have grade in tons. And with grade in tons, you can do a lot. And you can make a project economically viable. And in my career, I've been lucky to have handed to me great projects. Mag Silver's Juanicipio and Valdecañas projects are now $2.5 billion projects that are being sold to Pan American. New Pacific Metals, Silver Sand project and the Carangas project are going into production, will be the largest silver projects going into production in Bolivia in the last 30 years. Both of these companies are billion-dollar companies, mainly because the project can stand on its own. The next thing you need, the next ingredient you need is a good management team that has good experience. In this management team, you've got Pat Veris, and you've got Dan McNeil and myself, Hank Van Alphen. All of these people have actually taken projects, made major discoveries, as I said, with MAG, New Pacific, Far West. Sorry, it's Pat's company, and the diamond mine, Ogotoyo. These are people who have made major discoveries in the past and bring them to market with economic viability. The third leg of the stool is jurisdiction. If you're in a jurisdiction where you can't work because the people won't let you work, or you can't get permitting, or it's too high, or the environment's too negative, then it doesn't matter what kind of project you have, it won't see the light of day. So those three things are important to remember, and we have all three of those things here at Domestic Metals. I have already made, and I'm going to continue to make, forward-looking statements, so you should be aware of that. Now, I'm going to spend a little bit of time, don't spend a lot of time on the copper demand overview here. We know why copper is important. We know about electrification. We know about electric vehicles, wind and solar, and grid augmentation. to build this new electrified world that we're going to need. We just recently are running into the fact that artificial intelligence is going to need a great deal of power. That's going to require more copper. And you can see on the left-hand slide here that the supply gap that we have in terms of the oncoming supply of already found copper is not going to meet the demands that we have from our governments for 2050 targets. And not only is the supply not going to meet it, we have to find new sources of copper, which we can do with projects like Smart Creek, the Sunrise Mine. Excuse me. So this again is just more about copper. The supply demand has driven the price, and we all know this. It hit a 550 high this year, dropped off a bit, but the consensus forecast has it running at least $4.50 to $5 a pound for the next few years. So we're in the United States. That's important because the United States has these mandates that they've just put out, and they put out one, I think it was yesterday, making copper a critical metal. In Trump's first administration, he identified a critical metals list. Biden followed that up by having $120 billion in investments in battery and critical metals. And the Trump second administration is also obviously looking at defense metals and production in the United States. They want to have it in the United States. There's an anecdotal story that I'll tell you about how Trump is actually helping us in this getting our projects permitted and getting them forward. Rio Tinto, which owns the project that we are going to earn 60% in, and they'll own 40%, had 36 drill holes at our Smart Creek Sunrise project permitted, and they expired in December of last year. And Dan, one of our geologists, called up the Forest Service and said, look, instead of us going through all of the permitting hoops that we have to go through environmental and making these new applications that are going to take months, would you consider reinstating those 36 holes and just pushing the timeline out? And they came back and said, yes. Now, I've been doing this for a while, and I've never, ever known the Forest Service to do this in the past. So again, we're in an environment in the United States where they're trying, the Trump administration is trying to move things forward for us. And so, yes, we are we in a top tier mining jurisdiction? Yes, we are. Montana produces 64 million pounds of copper annually, 4% of the production. The really important point here is that the Butte Mining District and the Butte Mine itself has produced 22 billion pounds of copper. If you look at the map on the left, those green dots are copper occurrences in the central and western part of Montana. The Butte Mine has produced 5 billion pounds of copper, and it is the biggest porphyry, one of the biggest porphyries in U.S. history. No one, particularly the geologists, would be surprised if the Smart Creek Sunrise project produced the second biggest or the next big porphyry discovery is in this area. It wouldn't surprise because of the amount, because of the type of project that the Butte Mine has produced. We're also in good company with Hog Haven and Ivanhoe Electric, the Hedleston Mine, which is shut down, and Beaverton and Black Butte Sunfire Resources. It's a smaller resource, but it's high grade. And again, that's about economics. And when we're still talking about jurisdiction here, and as I said, if you can't get things permitted, it doesn't matter. So we can get patented mining claims in 14 days. That's a very short period of time. Unpatented mining claims in 3 to 4 months. Montana has some environmental safeguards. In '98, they improved the Initiative 137, which banned cyanide in open pit and gold mining. Gold and silver mining. And the Washington Group, which owns the Butte Mine, is producing a concentrate, which we will be producing as well. So we're in a good jurisdiction. And obviously on the right-hand side of the slide there, you can see we're in good company with Ivanhoe, Hecla, Rio, American, and the Washington Group. We met with, Dan and I met with Canaccord a couple of weeks ago, and when they looked at our presentation and looked at the project, they actually they cover a company called Hercules Metals. And the first thing their analyst said was, this is a lookalike, an analog for Hercules. And this is the comparison slide sort of points that out. Barrick took 12% stake in Hercules by giving them $25 million. Rio is keeping a 40% stake in this project. They're not giving us money, but they're keeping a 40% stake because they believe in the project. We asked for 100%. They said, no way. We think this thing is going to be a major discovery. We want you guys to help us with it, but we're not giving it all to you. So we've got Barrick and Hercules and Rio and domestic. The capital structure, you've got Hercules of 275 million fully diluted, and it's 183 million market cap. We're at 39 million shares fully diluted and an 8 million market cap. In terms of location and jurisdiction, they're ranked 5th in Idaho. In investive attractiveness, Montana's ranked 6th. And one of the biggest drivers of comparables and market visibility that will give you some market appreciation is the best intercept that we both have. They have 185 meters of 0.84% copper, including 45 meters of 1.94. We have 109 of 0.75, 80 meters of 0.97, and 16 meters of 2.25. Those are the kind of numbers. If we can replicate 100 meters of 0.75 or 100 meters of 0.96, then the market has to pay attention. And particularly with the share structure that we have, those kind of numbers will drive markets. And I've saw it before with Mag Silver. Tighter structures, those kind of numbers, you'll get forward movement. We're both using advanced exploration techniques. They're using advanced 3D modeling like Leapfrog. We are as well with our geophysics and the drone mag. We're both using the same advanced exploration techniques. And on the drilling side, they've got 308 historical holes, 5,500 meters drilled so far this year, with 7 holes completed. They're in 5. They got 5 in progress. We've got 40 historical holes. 26 of those were drilled by Rio Tinto, but we're fully permitted now for 36 holes, and we have a 5,000 meter program that we'll walk you through later in the presentation. I like both of these charts. Hercules has got a good chart. I think we have a better chart. We are going to push, like I said, we have done no marketing in this company. And this is basically the first bit of real marketing that we've done. But if we lean on this, given the structure, I think this chart will even look a lot better. So how did a small company with an $8 million market cap get a potential major porphyry discovery project? Mainly through personal relationships. And I'm going to let Dan McNeil, because it's his relationship, tell you how we got to that, and then I'll take a couple more slides. Then he's going to jump into the geology of the project.
Gord. Good afternoon, everybody. So, it really was a relationship that we had with some of the technical team at Rio Tinto that allowed us to get a first look at the Smart Creek project. I think the technical team at Rio Tinto was given the mandate to farm this project out. Through this personal relationship, we got a notification that they were interested in vending the project, and they selected us for consideration because of myself and a colleague, Alan Wainwright's reputation for drilling projects like this in the Southwest United States. So they said, okay, well, why don't you guys take a look at this thing, and if you like it, we can maybe proceed to a deal. We quickly looked through the data room, went and looked at the drill core, visited the property, and said, yeah, we can, probably, look at the technical aspects of this and drill some holes. And Rio Tinto said, great. So here we are today.
Thanks, Dan. So what's the exploration and potential of this? With the data that Dan was just talking about that we reviewed, we have a lot of data that can be leveraged to a new discovery. And make no mistake, this is about a new discovery. I talked about the best drilled intercept earlier with the 309, 80, and 16 meters at 2.25. We've got 40 drill holes on the property. Exxon, Utah International, Noranda, Pegasus, Rio, and U.S. Bureau of Mines did the drilling. It's an underexplored trend in this area. And the porphyry there's a lot of porphyry prospects and other deposits, particularly also Dan and Alan found gold occurrences at the Sunrise Mine area, and he'll talk about that later. What I'm also a little bit excited about, or actually quite excited about, is that we've had past production. And the past production numbers are actually quite impressive. Sunrise between the mine area between the 1800s and the 1900s produced 12,500 ounces of gold at 6 grams gold, 31 grams silver. And what I really am excited about is the 1.5% copper. We can replicate those kind of numbers in copper, game's over. This slide is just a drilling composite summary of some of the holes and trenches in the area. You can see the SMC R0022 holes with the included portions are the ones that are the numbers I've gone through several times. But the rest of these tables really show us, if you're a geologist, that there's a lot of smoke here and leading to some fire. These numbers show that these are distal numbers, meaning some distance away from the source. But it's vectoring, the numbers are vectoring us as you get to those top numbers to the source of a porphyry. And these kind of numbers are numbers that may not excite the individual, but the geologists in them look at it and they go, wow, this is there's smoke here. You just got to keep going and find and make the major discovery. So I'm now going to turn this over to Dan, because the you got to know what you know, and I'm a capital markets guy, and I've run a lot of drill programs, but I'm not a geologist. So I have to turn the geological portions over to the people that know the geology. I'll learn it eventually, but and I've been taught by some of the best in the business. But at this particular point in time, I'd like to turn the geology over to Dan. Dan will keep things at a high level for most of us who aren't geologists, and he'll explain the geology and the excitement in the area.
Thanks, Gord. Can I ask you to go back one slide? I feel like we should unpack those drill numbers just a little bit more for the audience. So for everyone listening, it's a sort of an important point that Gord made, that the numbers that you see here are sort of smoke related. And I think what Gord is driving at here is that when we think of porphyry copper systems, we know how mineralization changes from outside of porphyry to the inside of a porphyry. Alteration mineralogy does the same thing. So all of the numbers that you see in this table represent distal expressions of a porphyry copper deposit. We're delighted that the distal expression contains so much copper, because it means when we cut the center of the system, the hottest part, we expect that to be similarly copper endowed. So really, these drill results suggest that Rio Tinto and previous operators cut a bunch of interesting mineralization outside the core of the system, leaving Domestic Metals the opportunity to leverage these drill holes and all the other data that's available to cut the center of the system. It's very exciting stuff. Next slide, please, Gord. So what you see here on the left-hand side of this slide is the Smart Creek property. I'd like to call attention to the scale bar on the lower right-hand side. So this is quite a large land position. What we're showing in the background is the mag data. The mag features, those high features that you see on the east side of the project, represent diabase intrusions. Diabase intrusions are really important to have associated with your porphyry system, because they contain lots of iron and magnesium, and that sort of chemical composition causes copper to drop out of solution when copper-bearing solutions hit those rocks. Also, you see there's a blue dotted polygon on this figure. These are, again, another example of reactive host rocks for the Smart Creek projects. This is the Helena group, or the Helena Formation, and the Helena Formation has these wonderful marbles. When magmatic hydrothermal fluids, copper-bearing fluids, intersect this kind of host rock, they drop out of solution, giving us potential for very high grades. So it's quite wonderful. What we're showing in closer to the foreground are 4 target blocks, 3 of which are a high priority for the company today. Those include Smart Creek, in the northeast, the Sunrise mine target in the northwest, and then the southwest, the radio tower target. Now, each of these targets have very compelling host rocks, which I've mentioned, but they also contain evidence of copper mineralization in soils as you can see by the bubble plots in green, and in drilling and in surface rock samples. So what we're showcasing here today is 3 examples of some very large target areas that are prospective for carbonate replacement deposits, as well as their spatially, if not genetically related, porphyry deposits. Now, the only other thing I'll say about this slide is that in order to find a large ore body, you need to have a large footprint, a large alteration footprint. And if you look at the dotted purple lines on the Smart Creek side of the project or at the Sunrise side of the project, these are significantly sized magmatic hydrothermal zones of alteration, which can conceal very large deposits. Next slide, please. So the idea here for Domestic Metals is to come at this, compile, or I suppose leverage all of the abundant data that we receive from Rio Tinto, coupled with our own ongoing surface mapping, sampling, and prospecting, as well as some geophysics, to define 2 of the best holes that we can for each of our 3 best targets. This would leave us with some, according to a 3,500 meter drill program, this would leave us with some runway drill meters for follow-up. Next slide. So to give everyone a sense of where these sort of types of deposits exist in an idealized exploration framework, what we've shown here is a cartoon that showcases the location of each of the targets that I've just walked through. Starting off in the west side, you can see there's some orange alteration polygons there. That corresponds to the location of the Sunrise mine, sort of at the transition between the Helena formation, shown in green, those are those beautifully reactive carbonate host rocks, and the Missoula, which are some caprock quartzites. The Sunrise mine here is a sort of a Mantos CRD, and does have some epithermal componentry. That sort of system is commonly driven by a deeper porphyry system. And we've shown that schematically below the Sunrise mine with that red intrusion with the yellow sort of pay zone, conceptual, of course. Moving over to Smart Creek, what we have in drill intercept there is sort of a distal component of that porphyry system concealed by the reactive Helena rocks. Holes like Smart Creek 22 are a localized example of high-grade material, yet in a distal setting. The radio tower target, which exists in the southwest part of the Smart Creek property, would be sort of a carbonate, maybe coupled with a porphyry system, and that would be a more distal zone as shown in the right-hand side of the section here. So taken together, the property has exactly the right magmatic plumbing, the exact right magmatic rock chemistry, and big enough alteration footprints to conceal quite a sizable system, should drilling go well. One interesting sort of an analogous project to this sort of geological architectural setup would be the Copper Queen deposit in southeast Arizona, in the Bisbee district. This had a very similar sort of geological setup, and the Copper Queen mine contained 53 million tons of 6%. That's what reactive host rocks do for your project. Next slide. We mentioned earlier in the presentation that we were able to leverage a lot of high-quality data that we received from Rio Tinto and, in fact, previous operators. What you're looking at on this map is a blue polygon showing the distribution of those reactive Helena group or Helena formation limestones. On top of that, we've superimposed a reconnaissance IP geophysical survey done by Rio Tinto in 2022. Some features of interest would be in the northwest portion of Smart Creek, there's a red chargeability high feature sitting there. And you can see there's a series of orange and yellow dots. Now, Rio Tinto successfully followed the higher temperature alteration toward the northwest up to the margin of this interesting feature. Now, chargeability we often use at a very high level for a proxy for sulfides. And sulfides are the name of the game at Smart Creek. An accumulation of sulfides, we would hope that in a drill intercept scenario, some of those sulfides would be chalcopyrite, and we found the system we're looking for. So this chargeability feature at Smart Creek isn't adequately tested. Our goal is to get in here and test that feature. Now, the IP survey over at the Sunrise Mine is very compelling because we have sort of two fragments of chargeability features of interest, one associated with the Sunrise Mine itself, and then one to the southeast of the radio tower target. Now we've drawn a dashed red line, wondering, of course, if these link up. If they do in fact link up, that is a very sizable chargeability feature worthy of drill delineation. Next slide, please. Just to make this point a little more clear to everyone on the call, at the scale of the property, these chargeability features don't look that big. But I want to remind the audience at this time that each of the squares on these cross sections in the upper cross section for Smart Creek, those are 250 meters. So we know that we need big alteration footprints to conceal large ore bodies. We also need large geophysical features. That's also a very good sign. So we certainly have that, size, the right size of feature to have something very significant at Smart Creek. Similarly, down at Radio Tower, this is quite a sizable chargeability feature, very interesting. And fortunately for domestic, it occurs in exactly the right host rocks that we like our mineralization to be hosted in. So again, big features, big footprints have the potential for large deposits. Next slide, please. This is just some examples of some of the styles of mineralization we see across the property. As a general statement, I think it's important that a property contain multiple styles of mineralization all centered around the same theme. So each of the styles of mineralization that I'm going to mention here are all associated with magmatic hydrothermal systems. And these magmatic hydrothermal systems are foundationally driven by the right geology to form porphyry ore bodies. So starting in the upper left-hand side, what that is an example from an outcrop at surface that contains hypogene or sulfide copper. In the southeastern part of the Smart Creek project, we see quite a lot of remobilized copper in the form of malachite and chrysocolla. This is an exotic copper system. No shortage of copper floating around the Smart Creek area. The next photograph on the right is part of this sort of flagship intersect that Gord mentioned earlier. The next in the lower left panel, this is some epithermal textures, so epithermal regime textures that contain gold over at the Sunrise Mine. So very robust gold grades, up to 6 grams per ton, happen here, and these are exactly the kind of rocks that allow you to have that. And then we see transitional CRD skarn. This is the sort of zone that exists distal to the porphyry system or above. And this is also occurs abundantly in outcrop on the Smart Creek property. So taken together, these rock photographs really represent the metal endowment for the project. Next slide. During our due diligence for the project, we were verifying some of the data previously collected and got it in close to the Smart Creek mine. And about 1 kilometer away, we stopped our field truck on an altered outcrop, and that altered outcrop contained a quartz sericite pyrite alteration for those in the know, but let's say alteration consistent with the highest levels of a porphyry. It also contained sheeted quartz veins. Usually you sample these sorts of veins and get sub-gram material. In this instance, we got 4.26 grams per ton gold, out of a porphyry intrusion. And incidentally, we're 1 kilometer away from the historically mined material at Sunrise. So in sort of one sample, we were able to dramatically increase our confidence that the Sunrise mineralization at the Sunrise mine is being driven by um, sort of the right styles of rock and alteration that suggest a porphyry linkage. So our confidence, this sort of one observation really elevated the Sunrise deep drill test. Next slide, please. So I'm going to turn it back over to you here, Gord. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, Dan. So lands and access, again, as I said, jurisdiction, you need to be able to get permitted and you need to have access. And what you're looking at here is basically the patented land positions and the federal load claims on the Smart Creek Sunrise project. And it does lend itself for us to use. We have 36 holes that are permitted on this. So it is actually very, very easy for us to get going here. These pictures talk about the project assets. You can see where my cursor is here. This is just the road access in and out. It's very accessible. It's farmland. It's a possibility of us drilling in the winter, and there's a lot of snow in Montana in the winter. But this road we could plow this road and get in and out very easily. I've worked in a lot of places where it's a lot less accessible than this. The bottom left is the main adit of the Sunrise. You can see it here. And the bottom right is basically workings that you can see of the main adit and the workings here are where they pulled up the 12,500 ounces of gold with 1.5% copper. On the budget side, we're looking at right now we're doing field mapping and sampling. We're doing a lot of sampling and a lot of analysis on site. UV evaluation on the ongoing technical, and we're working with Rio on some of this stuff. Petrographic work is being done. I talked about advanced leapfrog modeling, which we're doing. Some target evaluation will be going on, and some more data evaluation, desktop evaluation. Geophysics we talked about, we want to tighten those targets up. Dan pointed out that there were some gaps in the geophysics from the 2022 study that Rio had done. We want to tighten those up, be $100,000 to do that on IP or MT, but we're planning on both. And the total drill program will be $2.875 million and give us a 5,000 meter program, of which we will start with 6 holes at 3,000 meters, 3,500 meters, and then the remaining 1,500 meters will come as a result of the analysis and the answers we get, the data we get from the first 6 holes. The deal with Rio Tinto is they own the whole project 100%. We are earning 60% of the project. They have the right to claw back 20% to give themselves 60 and us 40. But as Dan pointed out to me the other day, if they actually execute on a clawback, the company the company will be of such a size that it'll be in the billions of dollars because they want something big, and it's going to be good for shareholders. If they actually exercise that, we'll be in great shape. They get a 2% NSR with a buyback of 1% on the Sunrise area, but the fundamental parts of the agreement are: year one, we have to spend $150,000 on mapping, sampling, geophysics. That's going on right now. We've actually done that. Year two, we have to spend $1 million on 2,000 meters of drilling. We'll have that done shortly. Year three will be another $1 million we have to spend on the ground drilling, but that'll be dependent upon the first drill program. And year four is another $1 million, which will be driven on the second drill program. So all success driven. But, given what we're seeing so far, we will get this to a place where I believe from the drill results that we pull on the first few holes, I'm hoping that we push the value of the company to such a place that we can actually afford to triple the size of these programs and get more core out of the ground. So one of the legs of the stool that I talked about in terms of the asset itself, management and jurisdiction, is the management. Pat Ferris, who's on the call with us right now, He's the former CEO of Western Potash. He was an executive manager at Far West Mining. They sold that to Capstone for 1.1 billion. Again, these are people who have experience in the field, in discovery, and in transacting assets. He also was involved in the discovery in the Diavik diamond mine. My background, as I think I've mentioned many times so far, is I was a VP corporate development and one of the founding members of Mag Silver. That's being sold to Pan American right now. I went to Silvercorp Metals and became the VP corporate development there, but Refang found a deposit in Bolivia, couldn't run both companies, and asked me to take over New Pacific Metals, which I ran for 8 years in Bolivia, and took that to a $1.2 billion market cap company from 50 million. I've raised a lot of money in the resource sector, and I'm currently on a few mining, metals and mining boards. Stuart Ross is our CFO. Stuart is one of the founding members of a company called Clearly Canadian. It was in the 80s and 90s, but one of the most successful soft drink companies, Canadian soft drink companies in our history. He was also the CEO of Cardero Resources. What I like about Stuart is I've been working in this business for 35 years. He is the best CFO I've ever come across. He is diligent with the capital that we have, how it's spent, who it goes to, whether we can shave off some of this, where we can save money. He reads contracts word for word. I'm just so impressed by this guy. I'm glad we have him on the team. I'm going to turn the advisory and management of Dan and Alan over to Dan, so we could just tell you a little bit about himself, because he has quite a good background.
Thanks, Gord. I'm an economic geologist, 25 years experience in exploration and mining. Cut my teeth with Anglo American, did an 8-year run with Barrick. They funded a master's degree at the Mineral Deposit Research Unit at the University of British Columbia. I've worked on, multiple, all stages of projects in North America, South America, Europe, and Eastern Europe. I would like to introduce Alan Wainwright. He's a real credit to the technical team here, and incidentally, Alan is the sort of guy that's driving all of the sort of latest bells and whistles that we're applying in terms of new science to vector toward new CRD discovery and porphyry discovery at Smart Creek. So Alan's a porphyry copper specialist. He's got a PhD from the University of British Columbia. And I guess significantly, Alan Wainwright was part of the discovery team at Kaminak and got the Spud Hustis Award for his contribution to the discovery of the 5 million ounce coffee project.
Thanks, Dan. On the board side, I talked to you about Pat and myself, or I'm not on the board, but about Pat. Hank Van Alphen is a serial entrepreneur in the mining space. He was one of the founders of Corriente Resources. I think it was sold to the Chinese for 1.2 billion. He's raised almost $1 billion in the sector. He can find projects all over the world and is constantly being bombarded with them. And his corporate governance runs back 20, 30 years. John Sharon has been 20 years senior mining management. He's on the board of many public companies. He brings good corporate governance to us. He's been on the board since 2016, and he's got a BSc from Montana State University. David Reed is our largest shareholder. He's a lawyer with a DLA Piper. He's recognized as an expert in Canadian mining law. He again brings more corporate governance to us. And also, he, as I said, the largest shareholder. He believes in this and continues to contribute to the bottom line. In terms of share structure, the chart looks good. I think we can actually make it look a little better by doing a bit more marketing with a tight share structure. 23% of the shares are held by insiders. You can see that the issued and outstanding is 34.5 million shares, but fully diluted it's 39. This again reminds me of the Mag Silver structure, where we started with 35 million shares, and the analogy I hope will hold up, because MAG is being sold for 2.5 billion to Pan American. And I started there in 2003, and it only has 100 million shares out after 21 years. And is $2.5 billion. But part of that is because of the structure. If we can use the structure to move the price forward, of course, the drill bit has to give us joy, but that's what we all bet on here on new discovery. You have a new discovery, and I'll keep repeating it. I get 100 meters of 0.9% copper. We're going to move this thing forward with this kind of a structure. They're easy to move. So that's the end of the presentation. I'm just going to conclude by reiterating, tell them what you have to tell them, and then tell them again. So the three principles that I believe in are the asset itself. It has to have the ability to be economically viable. That's grade in tons. At 100 meters of 1%, that's grade in you're starting with grade in tons. You have geologists involved in this that are porphyry specialists. You have numbers so far that show distal mineralization to a porphyry. This is all leading to the largest discovery in U.S. history. The largest porphyry discovery in U.S. history is, I believe, what we're going to find here. Jurisdiction, we have permits. They gave them back to us. We don't have anybody in the area bothering us. We're in farmland. You have the largest copper mine in Montana is just southeast of us. The jurisdiction is fine. The team has done this before. We have taken exploration plays and taken them from 50 million to 2.5 billion, and we have made major discoveries. Those are the ingredients for success. So with that, I'm going to say we are done with our presentation. We'll turn it over to Irene for any questions that you have, and we're available for questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Gord. Yes, there's a few questions. I've got Paul here. Paul is asking, is Rio Tinto going to be involved in any technical or management capacity?
I'm going to turn that over to Daniel because he is the point person with Rio. We had a call with them this morning.
Yeah, a short answer is yes. So Rio Tinto has a technical seat, and we have a quarterly update. I will say also that Rio Tinto has been tremendously supportive and helpful in getting this proposed or planned IP MT survey expanded at Smart Creek. They've got some wonderful in-house geophysicists that are really helping us sort of navigate the turbulent waters of getting a new survey done. So absolutely, Rio Tinto's interested and involved on a technical level.
Fantastic, thank you, Dan. Mike here has a question, and the question is, share price is dependent on marketing. So can you share some of the upcoming marketing efforts given you just closed your financing?
Yeah, I'll take that, Irene. Yeah, we, as I said earlier, we have done, the company is fairly new and has done very little marketing. What we're planning on doing in the first week and to go back to the financing, we were looking for 3 million and got 1.2 million. It was timing that really sort of was our enemy in this, and we do have people who are actually looking at putting more money into the company. On the marketing standpoint, we will be pushing really very hard in the month of September. Beginning at the beginning of September, I'm going to be going to Beaver Creek with Hank Van Alphen, who's a director. We've set up some meetings as it is so far. I'm going to be on the phone with people that I know. John Liviakis, our IR person, is great at his phone work. We're going to be pushing very hard. We are going to be bringing in some outside sources, though, as well. We can do only so much on our own. So we're looking at bringing in one or two groups, and I'll call them, or marketing groups to help us move this forward. So yeah, you're right, Michael. If you asked that question, you can have a great asset, you can be in the right jurisdiction, you can have the right team. But I've known guys that have had groups, companies that have had great assets and great in good jurisdictions, but the team didn't have the marketing push, and this may be partially, it seems to happen with companies that are just geologically focused, that they don't push on the marketing side, because my focus and my experience is moving the company up the price scale reduces my cost of capital and reduces my dilution. So pushing it as far as I can, as hard as I can, is what we're going to do in the first month of September.
Okay, thank you, Gord. In the interest of time, I think one more question. That's okay, right?
Yeah.
John asked, like, with the project to date, as is, where would you drill the first hole? Is that a question maybe for Dan?
No, I know where I drill it, right down
Good.
the center of the porphyry. That's where I drill it. But I'll leave that to Dan.
I like when people ask the hard questions.
There you go.
I think probably still the most compelling target is the target that Rio Tinto started down on. So if you look at the drill pattern that Rio Tinto drilled, they stepped sort of progressively toward the northwest to the boundary of this sort of chargeability feature that I pointed out earlier. Yeah. So one of their westernmost holes here was abandoned not for technical reasons, but because it made a lot of water. So for the geologists on the call, they started seeing a higher density of B veins. And for the non-geologists, B veins are sort of the type of veins that tell you that you're in a porphyry system. Those things get more and more common as you step west in the drilling, suggesting that the center is out in that direction, in the direction of that chargeability feature. So if I had one hole to deploy, I would deploy it right where Gord's cursor is right now. That's the one. And then, I don't want to discount Sunrise because we found the magmatic plumbing out there and it's tremendously enriched in gold. So I think I would go though the volume of data kind of points us to Smart Creek west for hole 1 and then see where we go from there.
Good. Thank you, Dan. Can I put in one more question? The last one, maybe? I'm just going to do it. It's Paul again. Like you mentioned, Gord, you mentioned Max Silver, which has performed very well and in fact is being bought out. Can you share what the price movement was from when you started with them to the current share price now?
I started in 2003 and it was 50 cents. And by 2000 and late 2004, we had it to $14. It dropped back to $4, and then we pushed it to $18, and today it's trading at $32. The deal with Pan American is at $22, I believe. I don't understand why a deal that's just about to consummate at $22 is trading at $32, but it is. But what that allowed us to do by getting it from 50 cents to say $10, $15 was my cost of capital was just so low. I mean, it was a 46-54 joint venture where Mag Silver had to come up with $140 million for its part of the build of the Juanicipio project. And one analyst asked me one day in a meeting, "You guys are going to have to come up with $140 million. I mean, that's a lot of money. Where are you going to get it?" And I looked at him, like CEO was sitting with me, and I said, "Wait a minute, that's 10 million shares at $14 a share. I can pick up the phone and I'll have that tomorrow. I can get $140 million with a phone call." And that's what structure and grade and tons allows you to do.
Okay, then one last question, and I think that's really the final one that was Paul as well. That actually was his second question. So what is it that excites you about domestic metals then?
Sorry, Rain, who was that directed to?
To Gord.
Okay.
What excites me about the domestic metals?
Yeah.
Oh, Dan McNeil.
Then?
The guy, I mean, when you get geologists, like this happens it doesn't happen all the time. The way I've already talked to Dan about this, the way you sell this kind of a story, this is part of the marketing thing, doing a webinar and talking to investors. But the real way you sell a potential discovery of this size in this place is you go to the analyst, the geologist, and you go to the geological analyst and you say, here's what I have, here are the numbers, here's what it looks like, what do you think? And when you watch their faces, these geologists light up and they say to me, oh, I'm too busy, I can't come. And then they say, oh, can I get a trip to the project? They're now trying to get on the project because they want to see it. Once the geologists get excited about it, you can sell this to everybody, and he's excited about it. Wainwright's excited about it. He talked to Peter Bell from Canaccord, and they talked about the comparison. Bell is excited about it. He wants to get on the project right away. Like that, that excites me because it's exactly the same thing that happened with Mag Silver and New Pacific. The geologists and the analysts, geological analysts, grabbed it first, and then they start talking amongst themselves. Then it goes to the sales desks. Then the sales desks start telling their customers, and then the price starts to move. That's how you do it.
And with that, thank you very much. I think we've come to the end of our first webinar. To be repeated, I think. Thank you very much for attending. The webinar has been recorded. We'll be sending out a link. We hope to see you again in a couple of months' time when we will do this again. So thank you very much. Thank you very much
Thank you,
to my
everyone.
colleagues as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.